Hello, welcome back to Lessons Learned. I'm Sherry, and today I'm going to introduce to you a new quilt along for 2024, the first one of this year, and it will involve a technique called Quilt As You Go. Many of you have probably heard of this technique, if not have done it, or maybe have done several different techniques called Quilt As You Go. Of course, the purpose of it is to quilt as you go. So as you do each of your blocks, your quilting is taking place. And then afterwards, once your blocks are finished, you hook them together. But there's many different methods on how to do that. Some things I was looking for on Quilt As You Go, and by the way, I have never done Quilt As You Go. It intrigues me. I don't know why I haven't ever done it, but it's time. And this is going to be a scrappy big block version as well, so we can do some stash busting at the same time. So the technique that I was looking for, I wanted to find a technique that had no hand sewing. A lot of the techniques do involve hand sewing, and I didn't want to do that. And then I also wanted one that involved a wider sashing than what I normally have seen on Quilt As You Go quilts. So what do you do when you don't know how to do something? You go to YouTube, right? I found a couple of YouTubers that had some Quilt As You Go methods out there, and the one that I landed on that I liked the best was by Teresa Down Under. She's a very popular YouTuber that has lots of quilting tutorials, and she put out a video called 9 different techniques of Quilt As You Go. So feel free to go watch that video as well after you finish with this one. I will link it in the description box. With each of her techniques in her description box of that video, she has timestamps about halfway down into her description box. So the technique that I have chosen is number 7. So you can actually go directly to number 7 and watch that portion of her video to see what we're going to be doing in our quilt along. So here's my first block. I've been playing around, and I decided that I wanted to use 2.5-inch strips for mine. Now these blocks will end up being 12 by 12 unfinished once you've trimmed them. So we're going to have 16 of these blocks. It's going to be a 4 by 4 block layout, and the quilt will finish at 52 by 52. So what will you need for that? First of all, you need approximately 2 yards of 2-inch strips. Now I tend to have a buildup of these 2.5-inch strips here. I have an entire bin nearly overflowing. It feels like it weighs about 10 pounds. It consists of cut-offs from other projects where I've processed scraps into 2.5-inch strips or leftover jelly roll strips. So if you quilt and sew as much as I do, you probably have a bunch of this. So this is one of the reasons why I decided to do this design, because I need to pare these down a little bit, and this will be a good opportunity to do that. Now, with this block, I have decided to center the block, or to stabilize the block, by using one common center block here, and it's a 4.5-inch block. So you're going to need 16 of these. Also, your sashing will need to be of that same fabric. So for that, the sashing and the center squares, you will need approximately 2 yards of fabric. And I suggest something that kind of reads solid. You can go solid. Black, gray would look great, or any of your lighter colors. Muslin would look great. Yeah, I just happen to love aqua, as you know, and I have enough left over from another project that I did in this fabric right here. This is, I'm thinking it is a Wyndham, no, it's a QT Fabrics, and I don't remember the name of it, but it's just kind of a mottled print with white and aqua. You don't have to do yours in aqua. You don't have to do it in any certain type of fabric. Just make sure that it's something that reads more of a solid, because this is what's going to stabilize your entire quilt. Scrappy is wonderful. You can just put all your scraps together and make blocks and make an entire quilt top out of it. Looks great. But this particular quilt along project that we're going to do, we're going to give a little bit more structure to our scrappiness. So that's what I'm going to use for that. Also, for your backing, you need 2 1/4 yards for your 16 13-inch blocks. So we're going to cut the blocks at 13 inches, both your backing and your batting, to start off with. Then we're going to trim them down to 12 inches. This is a 12-inch unfinished block. So there's my backs. Here's my batting scraps that I had. If you don't have batting scraps that are of the right size, you can go and pick up at least a twin size bag of batting, or sometimes you can find a 60 by 60 square of batting in the packaged batting section. So that would work too. What else will you need for this project? Now, I'm not going to give you the measurements yet for the sashing. We'll get to that in a later video. So let's see here. Rulers. The rulers that you're going to want to use for this. If you want to center your square perfectly, you're going to need a ruler to measure a certain distance from each edge of your block. If it gets off a little bit, don't worry about it. But this will be we will construct one of these blocks together in the first video of February. By the way, this quilt along will start and run through the month of February. Next week, we're still in January, and I already have a video planned for that. So we're going to be in 2 weeks. You have 2 weeks to get together your scraps and your yardage that you need to use for this project. Also, you're going to want to find a square ruler that's at least 12 inches square. If you have a 12-inch square, that's perfect, because you can just lay your little square right in the center of that ruler and trim it off. Mine is 12 and a half by 12 and a half. So I had to kind of do a little bit of finagling. You know, you do 2 sides and then you move it and you do the other 2 sides. So any other big ruler that you have, if it's bigger than this, if you have a 16-inch or whatever, you can use that. You just need to trim 2 sides at a time to get your 12-inch finished. Well, not completely finished, but your completed unfinished block needs to be 12 inches. So these are 13. Your backing is 13, and we'll trim down to 12 after these are all sewn together. So we're going to sew right on top of the batting with our strips. Start with your center square there, 4.5 inches. Get you a 4.5 inch or longer piece for the next one, and then we're just going to go around in a circle. There again, the first video that I will have in February, we will do this together. So don't start just yet. Just get your supplies together. And of course you need a sewing machine and thread, and that is all you're going to need for this project. So most of these things you should have already in your stash. It's still no by January, so you might be out on the 1st of February buying stuff if you don't have this stuff, but you're more than welcome to quilt along with us on this quilt along as well, even if you have to buy fabric and cut strips. And you can certainly do that. So your assignment from today until the next quilt along video is to gather those items together and prep your 13-inch batting. You need 16. And your 13-inch backing, you need 16, and your 4.5 inch blocks or squares, center squares, you need 16. So as far as these go, you need 13 inches or longer for most of these. You know, if you have some shorter ones for those initial ones, that's fine. Just get a supply of these out, or if you need to cut some of your scraps up into 2.5 inch strips, go ahead and get that done before that first video. So the next time you see me for this quilt along will be us putting our first block together. So that will be the first Wednesday of February. And let's see, was there anything else I needed to tell you? Oh, we're going to make 4 blocks per week, and that should be very easy to do if you've already prepped all of your squares that you need for these blocks. And then on that video, I'll give you tips on how to make your quilting very neat and tidy, and also how to get a nice square block like this so that when we do go to do our sashing, they're all going to fit together nicely. So the following video in February after the block construction one will be the sashing. By then you should have 4 of the blocks finished, and I will show you how to put a row together and what to cut for your sashing to be able to do that technique. So that's your assignment for now, is to go check out Teresa Down Under's technique number 7 in the linked video and get your cutting done for your batting and your small squares. All right, let's have fun. It's going to be great, and it'll be an easy new technique to add to our skills, our quilting and sewing skills here in our quilting studios. All right, have a great week, and we'll see you back here this week on Finish It Friday. Bye.